Okay, last part with regard to the TCIR rate or TRIR rate and DART rates. You do have a cheat sheet in your packet, and this is in there, but it does talk about this, and it's calculating injury and illness incident rates, and so it does talk about it there, and so you can do that. But the easiest way to look at this when you're looking at calculating this is very simplistic. But we're looking at the TC, which is total case incident rate, or the total recordable incident rate. We'll look at those. And so those are kind of used synonymously. It just kind of depends. But what you're going to do is on your sheet here, under columns G, H, and I, and so we're looking at your columns like right here. I know this is out of focus, if I can get over there, right over in here. And so what you're going to do is add all of those up and then multiply them by 200,000. And that 200,000 essentially is the hours that an average person works for 50 weeks. So given that a person potentially has 2 weeks vacation, they work 40 hours a week times 50 weeks, it's going to be 200,000. And then it's divided by the total number of employee hours. And once again, this includes seasonal, part-time, full-time, that type of thing. And this is all based on 100 employees when we look at it over the time period, which is typically a year. The DART rate is calculated pretty much the same, and sorry about that, that line needs to be up here. When we look at it, it is going to be the days away restricted and transfer rate, and we would look under columns only H and I on this one. And so we would multiply the total cases. We'd add the H and I together, we would multiply it by 200,000, and then we would also divide that by the labor hours that the person works, or the whole company works. Now, a good check, if your DART rate is higher than your TRR rate or TCIR rate, then you've done something wrong. It always should be higher. So that's something just to kind of do a double check for yourself on that. So just to kind of go, I want to go over here to the BLS, and when we can look at this, they will kind of help you with regard to calculating it, and this is their incident rate calculator that you can put in the number of hours, and I'm going to put 202, let's put 200 million hours there. I think that's correct when we look at it. No, that's too much. Okay, so we'll put that in there, and the total number of non-fatality work illnesses and injuries, we're going to put 6. The days away, once again, are going to be less. We're going to put 4. Let me change this to 10. And then the restriction or job transfer is going to be 2, and we're just bumping that up against 2017 private industry, and we can check we're going to be manufacturing, and this allows us to actually look at our code. I'm just going to pick one of plastics. Oh, that's kind of nice. Plastics and resins, and then I'm going to calculate it. And so essentially it tells us that our establishment is at 0.07 on the total cases, and that the private industry is at 1.6. And so we are under all the industries that are out there, kind of bumped up against ours. We're underneath that. We can also see here under job restriction, our DART rate, this rate here, and this right here are the two that they're really going to look at. They're not going to break it down into this much when we look at it. So that's a good way. It's kind of a comparison tool to see how your company is doing, and it does help out. OSHA will do the same thing when they get there. If you do have a conference with them, and they'll check that to see where you're at. The one good thing is that you can be under, but if you're way under, that possibly would cause some major injury or major problems with regard to it. So this is just an example. We have G, H, I, and J, and we're kind of trying to calculate that. If we were going to put the information into that we would add all of these together, G, H, I, and J, to get 20. We would multiply it by 200,000, and I've given you that the hours are 500,000. Our TCIR rate would be per 100 employees, so 8 out of 100 employees have been injured this past year. Our DART rate, we're only going to do the H and the I, so the 9 times 200,000, the hours stay the same, and so it would be 3.6. Just kind of do a mental check. Our TCIR rate is more than our DART rate, so it's potentially correct, but we would go ahead and say, okay, that our DART rate was 3.6, so 3.6 employees out of 100 were had a days away or job restriction last year. Just to kind of go into who we would count, would we count contractors when they're there and they're actually working underneath your auspices? Then yes, you would. When they're kind of intermingled, like temporary employees, if they don't have someone there that's supervising them other from their company, if you are supervising them, your management is, then yes, they would be included. And then construction sites are kind of different as well. They include like all subcontractors at the work site, and they've got to be kind of included in that numbers. And those would be some of those who you would count with regard to that. Low incident strategies, just to kind of keep your DART rates and incident rates low. Obviously, just to avoid any injuries, but that always can't happen. So we do need to make sure that we're looking at all hours, including all hours from temporary contractors, anybody else with regard to that. We do need to make sure we're recording correctly. There was a person who came in one time and was confused about this and was asking me, so I sat down with them and started asking them questions. At the time that they had done that, they had 9 recordables, and we took all but one off of there because the way that they were describing these, and so they were recording too many employees. It wasn't a new case, or it wasn't work related. That was a big one, or it wasn't actually under that criteria, those general criteria. So make sure that you're following that. Also, to have a good doctor that you're taking the person to, not always the emergency room, because the emergency room is automatically going to give them a prescription, but have a doctor or a nurse or someone that you can work with as a company and look at that. Also, to knowing what's first aid and what's not first aid are going to kind of manage that a little bit. Another thing is a return to work program, because you want them to get back to work as soon as possible, versus having that days away restriction is going to be less severe when we look at it. And then also too, I showed you how to get to that NAICS code from the BLS page, but you can also get to it from right here. Typically, your insurance rates are going to be looking at a 3-year period, and it's not going to include the very past year. It's going to be 3 years ahead of time. Oh, I almost knocked my microphone off there. Definitely making sure that you're looking at that and talking with your insurance company with them. So here's just a couple more examples just to go through this. This company has like 80 employees, and they've worked a total of 150,000 hours during the year. And so if we calculated that, what would that be? And hang on for just a second. Okay, so just to kind of look at this, I'm just going to draw it up here as much as I can, which I'm not very good at this. So we have 15 employees. That's a really bad 5, and we're going to multiply it by 200,000, or excuse me, not, let me go back here. Okay, let's start this over again. Okay, we have 15 recordables, and that's what I was looking at, and I apologize. We're going to multiply it by 200,000. I'm really bad at this. So we have 200,000. I'm trying to use my mouse, and we're dividing that by 150,000. First off, this is going to be super high, mainly because this is based on 200,000 a year. and we only have this many, and we have 80 employees. That doesn't really make sense, but what I came out with was 20. And so this is huge, it's high, and so we'd really kind of have to watch that when we look at it. If we wanted to just look at our DART rate, okay, so we would do 10 because the days away and the job restriction, we're going to multiply that by 200,000. I'm not getting any better at this, so oh well. And then we're going to divide it by 150,000. Oops, that's a 0. And what I came out with on that, and it's also going to be pretty high, is 13.33 is what I got. And so just to kind of make sure that you're understanding how to do that, that's just how you kind of calculate that. Then what we're going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and skip this one, but with the 3-year calculation, this is what insurance companies do. They do look at the past 3 years, and essentially the easiest way is to take year 1 rate, year 2 rate, year 3 rate, and divide it by 3, and that's going to be the average. And the same thing on the DART rate, just making sure that you're using the correct columns and everything. When it comes to rounding, we typically go up to the 10th, and so just like grades, we would do it round that up to the 10th. And I went ahead and put on here, this is your NAICS search, but you also can go to Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is just a summary of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and then all info with regard to that. And then BLS.gov is going to be that website, but here's also NAICS information too, so you can see that. But with that, we are done with this, and you do have a worksheet out there, so make sure you're asking me questions on the discussion board if you have any questions. Thank you.